Another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. We made it. Skype was trying to update my experience. Thank you, Bill Gates. Regardless of all of the technical snafus running into the first 5 minutes of this program, we have arrived. We have made it. It is a very interesting time. My name is Doug Owen. I am your host. It's the 20th day of August 2017. This is Blacklisted Radio. We don't need a fancy intro to tell you all about the show. I can do it, and do it each and every week. So go to blacklistedradio.com. That's the hub. I am Doug Owen, senior editor of blacklistednews.com. That's my website from which we draw most of the stuff that we talk about here on the show. It's interactive, lots of ways for you to be part of it. You do steer the conversation. 800-313-9443. You can go to blacklistednews.com. We have an interactive chat room there where the ambassadors during the live broadcast will greet you and make you feel very welcome, I think, for the most part. Got some trolls. There's a lot of trolling going on across the nation. People are definitely riled up. And there's really two sides of the Charlottesville fallout, where you fall. Some people absolutely want to just ignore these people and are completely disinterested, for the most part, in statues, going after statues, changing street names, changing school names, changing NFL brands, and see that as just more of this kind of leftist progressive idea that we need to take all of the reminders that we have in history away from us to make us feel better. And then there are the people that think that they should be protecting history. I actually kind of fall somewhere in this other area of disinterested in statues, period. I thought a lot about statues, and it's pretty funny because I've never really thought about statues, to be honest about it. The reminders of people that were important at one time. And most of the statues that we have in the United States are tributes to the military-industrial complex, people that were in the military. It's a reminder to people as to the omnipresent power of central government. Those that have won usually write history. In this country, we still have a lot of Robert E. Lee statues. Funny enough, the famous statue that you see almost everywhere that's being taken down and replaced with a variety of other statues, other tributes to things that people today think are important. Diversity, maybe integration. That'd be something I think, you would have some kind of reminder of when we had racial integration in this country. I mean, there's a lot of things. The civil rights movement, although, Lyndon Baines Johnson, FDR, there's a lot of very well-revered Democrats and Republicans alike that were virulent racists. And, you're judging people in the time they lived. The Mongolians were pretty brutal. It was a brutal time. So were the Romans. So were the Chinese. A lot of people have been brutal. There's been so much blood shed. I mean, that's the one constant that we've had here on planet Earth with the human race, and that is bloodshed. A lot of people believe that we're on the precipice of race riots and a reinvigoration, maybe a 1960s-style civil rights clash of people. Over the weekend, we had a lot of people coming out to these so-called free speech rallies where most of the participants, the heavily outnumbered anti-fascists, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's a broad brush to stroke over a lot of people that are disenfranchised and want free speech. So, I don't like to make these little boxes. Everybody's an anti-fascist. If you're an anti-fascist, there's over 100,000 signatures that have been digitally recorded at, I think, whitehouse.gov to get this organization characterized as a terrorist group. which I think is very dangerous. Even if you think that they're a bunch of punk kids that are using violence to, in they believe in an altruistic way, this righteous way to go after evil Nazis. I mean, this is really low-hanging fruit for all the things that are going on in the world today, quite honestly. Regardless of what happens in the streets, whether you're carrying a tiki torch or a baseball bat, fighting in Coliseum, Thunderdome. We talked a lot about the Thunderdome last week. The style method, is not very appealing to me. So go right ahead. Express your free speech by trying to suppress others. And, most of the message gets lost in the mix. It's the primordial soup of over input into this selective rage that we see people carrying out. But, here in Austin, we have a lot of statues. We have one of Willy Nelson. People think Willy Nelson's important. Not because he's been divorced, 3 times. Not because he was a great father. None of those things. It's because he smokes pot, and that's cool right now. And he is a country music legend and was able to bridge hippies and rednecks. One of the things they always used to joke about, it's probably not true now, but, Austin was where the hippies had guns and the cowboys smoked pot. So that's iconic. Is it really, excuse me, that valuable to a lot of people? I mean, is that some virtuistic thing that you're expecting to get from statues, monuments, things like that? I mean, not really. We have a statue of Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah, yes, the great classic bluesman himself, who Austin has, they've commercialized and grabbed onto this identity that they try to sell, which is no longer true. That we are the live music capital of the world, where we live, and all these things. And we're basically erecting statues to people that are creating economic development and making Austin a cool city to live in. Maybe. I mean, is that altruistic? Not really. So when it comes to tearing down statues, I mean, most of the statues that we have, I think, in this country are for, bloodlust. And I mean, it's not bad to remember. I mean, I don't care if I think that obviously the idea of ripping down symbols and things that we view as oppressive, art itself, attacking art, that is, just a prelude to some kind of cultural revolution. Those that want to change everyone. I mean, that's the thing. It's, Charles Barkley, from his mouth to God's ears, said, quote, "Waste of time worrying about stupid statues. I'm not going to waste my time worrying about these Confederate statues. That's wasted energy," Berkeley said. "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep doing great things. I'm going to keep trying to make a difference, number one, in the black community, because I'm black, but I'm also going to try to do good things in the world." I guess the retort, I'm trying to do good things in the white community. I always hate these ideas, that everybody's part of some global community, whether you're LGBT. I mean, just because you like to have sex with women doesn't define you, or it doesn't create a political identity for you. You might be conservative, and you might just be apathetic, disinterested in politics, and you don't feel like you're part of this political community. And that's what people do. Just like Austin with the idea of the live music capital, it's an idea that you somehow brand and sell, and that's what people want from their movements. And so there's so many people that are completely absent from that discussion. If you think about it, I mean, there's this community that's speaking for you, so now you don't matter. It happens in a lot of different types of social grouping. I'm sure there's more technical terms, scientific terms for it, but where everybody's put in their box, everybody has a label, and as soon as you have a label, Oh, Doug Owen, conspiracy theorist, easily makes me and my voice dismissive, or to be dismissed by those that are too highbrow to delve into the soup. So, Charles Barkley, not the most altruistic guy either. he's he's quite the gambler. He's got great stories. I mean, but I'm when I listen to Charles Barkley, I'm not looking for a role model or some guy that is going to teach my children ethics. Okay, when I tell my kids about Robert E. Lee, or they learn about it in Texas history, when we have the discussion of who he is, it's not like I'm going to take him to the statue and say, look, this dude was so great. Why was he so great, Dad? Think about it. They put a statue up of him. That means that he never did anything wrong and that he was a perfect person. Same thing for Willie Nelson. I mean, what are you looking for? I don't think it's a bad thing to remember Willie Nelson. He's very important at this time in history. Robert E. Lee was very important to people at that time in history. Not so much now. I don't know how relevant it is. Saw some of these free speech, the Freudian slip here, the free speech rallies around the country. And there is no issue, I think, for most people. They're terrified. The government has terrified them and terrorized them with this idea that there are Nazis, or people that are quote unquote alt-right, whatever that means. It's just another moniker. That those people are just have these huge, impactful numbers. They are outnumbered by people that are literally brain damaged, who believe that they need to shut down these Nazis. There's a lot of stuff that is going wrong in this country, and there's a lot of ways that you can go out there and make things better, screaming and trying to go after these fake threats. It's very, very eerily similar to some of the distractions of the 1990s. After the Soviet Union fell, no bad guys. And then it was on to Randy Weaver, the militias, the KKK, going after this threat. And, I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, cigarettes are a bigger threat. And nobody's starting a coalition. Nobody's talking about it on the news. Let's talk about the opioid crisis. There's a great reason that you're not hearing anything about that in the mainstream media, and it's a true conspiracy. It's not a theory that Big Pharma owns the media. They are able to control the narrative, and when we have crazy people that kill, what's always absent of the conversation? The kinds of psychotropic drugs these people are on. They don't want to make that connection. And that is proof positive that the media is completely controlled by the economic strings that they are suspended, that they are supported by. And there is a considerate conspiracy, consolidation of these types of news articles. And so, or news reporting, it's completely absent from your television. The opioid crisis is nothing compared with the alcohol crisis. Okay, the alcohol crisis that we have in this country. Okay, there's a lot of people dying from opioids. Great piece that we put out this week showed how many more people are dying from alcoholism in this country than even those addicted to prescribed painkillers, derivatives or forms of heroin, opiates. It's much, much worse, but really isn't. When you have 320 million Americans and people, turn on the television. Every commercial's for alcohol. The biggest lobby for the private prisons and people like Jeff Sessions, all of his, financial backers. It's big alcohol, the distributing companies that have a monopoly on this firewater for the people. But, people get to make a decision about what they want to do with their lives, and sometimes it ruins them. Sometimes people overeat to the point of obesity, crazy, 1,000-pound people having to be cut out of their homes. That's something that's never been, never, it just didn't happen, 200 years ago. It wasn't a problem. Now that people can eat, as much refined sugar as they want, now we have a huge obesity problem. But to me, once again, is it a problem? Is it something that we want to solve, or you want government to solve for you? Do you want to tax soda water like they're doing? I think it's in Philadelphia, where you're paying like a 33% tax on, soda beverages. I mean, they're horrific. High fructose corn syrup. I mean, you can't find a more foreign substance, just a horrible sweetener that is the primary driver and feeder of cancer, or at least a lot of types of cancer. There's some that do eat fat, but sugars in general. Sugar, just look into sugar. I mean, it's not a conspiracy. It is horrible for cell structure. It destroys the body. But do we need a government sugar agency? Sugar is dangerous. And if you did, then what would they bring you? Flame, Searle, aspartame, whatever it is, whatever they're calling it and marketing it this week. So, as usual, I'm kind of off the rails, but, it's selective outrage, and people buy into it. The only reason that we have, I think, so many people talking about it is because the media is talking about it. Protests, no matter, how prolific, are usually not that interesting. One person dies in Charlottesville, Virginia, and it's a tragedy, and it is. Nobody should be run over for whatever reason, whether he was escaping, trying to flee. I've seen more video now showing people chasing, as opposed to last week when we did the podcast, chasing this guy down. Did he overreact? Is he? A lot of people think that it's part of a government psyop to distract and divert away from what's happening in the world. I mean, the Trump administration, a constant focus, regardless of whether it's warranted, the constant questioning of the validity of the president is, the flavor of the week. I mean, it's been the flavor of the last, 8 months and 20 days, I guess 8 months now. It's been since we brought Donald, or maybe 7 months since Donald Trump took office. I mean, the media can't stop talking about him. His poll numbers, never before has it been worse. And you always have the other people out there. These are all rigged numbers. Well, yeah. Selectively rigged numbers, selectively chosen people for polls, and what does it mean? How many people believe now that the white supremacists, Nazis, alt-right, Bannon and Breitbart are progenitors of Nazism? And it's almost silly when you look at the number of owners and people that happen to be Jewish that work for Breitbart News. So, anti-Semitic, we'll just throw that out there because that's a, popular buzz term in U.S. politics. It's real easy to, once you're a denier, once you are a dissenter, you can be categorized. And maybe that's why we don't have, Fortune 500 sponsors for the company here. We'll take a quick break for ads. Be back in 3. It's Blacklisted Radio. Welcome back. If you're not enraged and want to stab a Nazi in the heart, then you're not paying attention to what's going on out there, right? That's the way the world is. People are being driven crazy by the media. And so my sister falls into one category of outraged liberals that do watch John Oliver, that really do enjoy focusing so much anger and attention to Donald Trump as the culprit for most of the ills of the world that were blatantly obvious to anyone looking, that were there before Donald Trump. He's just making it worse, according to them. And so, she reaches out and she's like, "Oh, that's because you're making money." Oh, this is the quick go-to to how a conversation with your family over politics can go really bad really quick. So my sister's like, well, it's because your website makes money off of talking about Donald Trump and blah, 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 and you're not exposing his lies. And I said, well, it's blacklisted news, number one. Okay, so does the mainstream media need my help exposing Donald Trump? I mean, all day long. I mean, if you have the time to filter through the narrative and all of the things that he's tied to. And I mean, I have never been thumping the drum for Donald Trump. I don't like Jared Kushner. He's real slimy. I didn't like Bannon. I don't know. And it's not because I think he's a virulent racist. He's kind of a con man in a lot of ways. And I mean, just go look into his history in the 90s and some of the things, the projects that he was part of. I mean, I don't know. Should he be a White House strategist? Who knows? Was he Trump's media mogul, that you needed on board? I mean, it's not to say the Democrats don't have 5 mainstream media mogul. I mean, basically a control of information being selectively given to the American people to enrage them. So, Breitbart News, people focus on that all day long. I mean, they do a lot of great reporting, and we got a lot of Jewish people there. So, it doesn't live up to hype. This is where the neo-Nazis hang out. Well, if they do, it's a hell of a honeypot because, they got people like Horowitz that write articles there. So if he's making money bringing Nazis to his website, that says a lot about him. And, maybe there's a debate to be had about that. I don't know. I don't care, quite honestly. So right now we have the Nafta negotiations that are starting in secrecy. Lobbying is heating up. Lots of people are ready to tap into all that oil that's going out to the highest bidder. The privatization of Mexican oil. It's a big deal. It is a paradise for billionaires, and the income inequality, the obvious, just massive, disproportionate poverty that grips 90% of the people in Mexico. Not to mention the fact that oil companies will now be able to buy rights into their infrastructure, but their own people can't own land. I mean, if you're not doing something with the land, you just can't sit on it. And maybe that's an interesting idea, but when you have people that don't own themselves and don't have a right to property, for whatever reason, you see the results. Some of you socialists may say, well, that's just because the wrong people did it. Maybe there is that. So I've been following this story about the Daily Stormer website that is quote unquote, or has been targeted by every group from the ADL to the Southern Poverty Law Center, all of these big, regarded non-governmental organizations, these tax-exempt organizations that have, some pretty interesting characters there amongst them that, the media always goes to. They say, okay, well, Doug Owen or Gavin McInnes or, Alex Jones, whoever it is, Republic Broadcasting, blah, 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 are these, these are groups, hate groups? Are they extremists? Are they conspiracy theorists? Those are the people that they go to, the media, to find out. They are the arbiters of, finding out, listening all day long. They have money to listen to these radio shows, and they find examples, and they let you know. So if you're not on the list, you're probably not anybody interesting. If you're not on the list, you're probably getting some money from Monsanto or Merck or something like that. But anyway, we have these, hate speech people that are invigorated with virtue signaling and trying to shut down this website. And the first time I went there, I mean, it had like a Pokemon header theme on the top of the website, and there was a little Hitler winking at you. So immediately, I think it's kind of like a satirical site. And if you look at some of the stuff that was there, it was so over the top, so ridiculous. You really realize that a lot of it is just attacks on political correctness and incitement, not, necessarily violent, but trying to hurt people's feelings and get people to react. And that's what they've done. They've been trying to get their website back online and are having a hell of a time doing it. Their domain was held by Google for a few days. They moved it there. Google chunked it. Namecheap, I think, was where they were trying to register their domain. Namecheap's actually the guys that I use, and there you go. That's kind of dangerous. But anyway, they're like, well, it goes beyond free speech. We want to protect free speech. It is incitement, which is an interesting new term you'll probably be hearing a lot about. So if you incite violence or say, hey, I guess it's okay to have a white supremacist website, for lack of a better term. I don't think that they're really that in that sense, but they had all the memes, they had all the in bombs and things that really are trigger happy for those millennials and those people on the left. Now, if it's rap music, it's okay. Same word, doesn't bother them a bit. The only thing that's confusing to white people is whether or not they buy that new Kanye album. If they're allowed to sing those lyrics, do you have to stop? That's a hell of a social issue for some of you people out there. Maybe, probably not a lot of you listening. Anyway, so I saw that it was down, and a guy that I actually started Oracle Broadcasting, the radio network that I ran for 5 years. It preceded me doing my own podcast exclusively online for about a year. Didn't want to deal with all of the personality and talent management aspects of the business. And if you've ever tried to get into radio or running a radio network, especially online with people that don't get paid, it can be tricky. That's why I give a lot of credit to Republic Broadcasting for being able to toe that line between so many people. I'm just one of the 20 or so hosts on this channel that probably don't talk to one another and get really upset about what the other person's saying. A lot of it. So anyway, Lee's website, infostormer.com, was like the daily slave, and it was one of the things. We definitely had different political. We're both really smart people, I think, and that's why we worked well together. Really, really smart guy. Got a master's degree. He's come to the conclusion that the Jews run the world and run everything, and that's the conclusion that you came to. That's all there is to it. It's not so much that I don't come maybe to some of the same conclusions. I just take, I guess, a different approach or a different thing away from that, and that is that you have a lot of people that are self-interested, that want. At the end of the day, most people are hungry for power, and that's what comes out of it. Whether you're in a club of Jewish people, or a club of Masons, or a club of Rome, or you're getting invites to the Bilderberg group, you're in exclusive clubs where people network, and that's always going to be there. There's always going to be a good old boy system of getting to the upper echelons of banking or any other group, and so that's kind of like a constant given. If it wasn't those dudes, it'd be some other dudes. If it wasn't centered around weird pedophilic, hanging out with owls and weird stuff, then it would be, I don't know, guys that all like to go to gals maybe that hang out and they have jet ski clubs. It'd be something else. So that is not like something that concerns me. Kind of like the statues here in America, because, like I said, most of the people that they have statues of themselves erected, people like Joe Paterno, Penn State, they had to take that thing down. They've got it in the closet. They're going to bring that statue out someday, because it's not so much what he engendered and kid rape or any of that stuff. It's that he won football games. And so, he's the General Lee of his time. He's a guy that was so revered for something that he did. It was so special. College football. I am excited about it, but not as excited about, turning a blind eye to the Baylor rape scandals, turning a blind eye to all of the bad things that come out of it, because people want football. It's big money, big business. So, whether it's the big banking business, Wall Street, Con Street, K Street, you're going to have those kind of things out there. They're inherent, and that's why you need a lot of transparency, and that's why if you are a big proponent of government, that's what government should be doing. But we have a focus on things that quite honestly don't matter. Threats that people perceive that are not real. North Korea is pretty scary unless you actually turn the page and look at what's happening between India and China. And that's why I said, the media is not talking about it, these real threats. That Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, Pentagon report about miniaturized nukes, that's not a new report. That report was collated, and it took 5 years. It was released 2 years ago. Okay, so why is the media now focusing on it? Oh, nuclear war. Well, because they can blame it on Donald Trump. He's going to start a nuclear war. He's going to start World War, I don't know, 5. It's probably where we're at. If we're not in a world war right now, I don't know what we're in. I mean, we're definitely in a world war or world proxy war on multiple fronts. Nobody cares. Nobody's outraged about Bashar al-Assad gassing those kids. Wink, wink. It's not a big deal. Nobody wants to go back and look at look at Seymour Hersh. I mean, he came out with this huge, very, very academic report on why these chemical weapons attacks did not happen. Okay? So Donald Trump, whoever's in power, is going to still be the progenitor of this. He's just one guy. It's a big, big system. Some people call it a swamp. And so we're going to probably see the signaling right now of a much more moderate Donald Trump, much more moderate White House, because Bannon's not there, right? At least that's what he's saying. He's saying that the Donald Trump that some of you voted for out there, that the guy you voted in is not going to be the guy you get because Steve Bannon's out. Anyway, they're excited about it. He's going back to Breitbart, and that will probably completely crush or discredit the mind of half of the people that read news. Everybody, I mean, we've gotten to the point where everything should be discredited except for the stuff that I like. Everybody's being put into their own Facebook echo chambers where you only get to see things that make you feel heart, click, 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 emoticon. We don't want to feel bad. So when something happens and somebody takes a picture of a monument, or you see somebody trophy hunting an elephant or something, we will put it out there because it's going to trigger me, man. Give me a trigger warning. It's so devastating. I'll give you a trigger warning. Look at the pictures that we put up from the starvation and the massive amount of war, illegal war that's taking place that the U.S. is funding by proxy through weapon sales and direct ground support in Yemen. You want to see some atrocious war crimes being committed? It's a good thing. It's a good thing that Donald Trump got rid of that War Crimes Commission. It's timely. That's something that definitely concerns me because you don't have a group like the Government Accountability Office that's somewhat independent, that's looking at not only what Bashar al-Assad's doing, because we know that that's bullcrap. We know that it serves no purpose. If you are buying the Bashar al-Assad Kool-Aid, it's because you're watching the media and you have some kind of lust for them. It's not because you trust them, because, I mean, if you're listening to this show, you obviously don't trust these people. You should not. They are operators. They have an agenda. They have corporate financial backers that have a vested interest in keeping you ignorant and buying their products. So why? Why do you believe it? And that's what I really got to with my sister. Same thing for most of this selective outrage that's happening today. So anyway, got a hold of Lee Rogers. I said, "Hey man, I heard I had to find his number. Luckily, it was buried in my Skype contacts. So I called him and said, "Hey, it's been like 5 years. No, it's 4 years now. I haven't talked to you. They took your website down." He's like, "Oh yeah. Yep. They came. They started, it was all generated by complaints, organized groups of people that are upset about it, just like the Daily Stormer, going after every domain and server host that they can find, picking them up and just complaining, and saying, well, it's hate content." So he was actually at the Charlottesville protests. He had a pretty interesting take on it, and I was like, well, I want to hear. And first thing I asked, were you with the tiki torches? Did you have a tiki torch? He said no. So I was like, okay, well, that's something. Anyway, so he said that the police had basically lined up all of the anti-fascists leading into the park. So if you were one of the tiki torch guys, you had to go through all of the protesters. He said when they went in, the violence hadn't really broken out. They were, of course, cussing, screaming, spitting at him. Nobody, hit him in the head. But when they wanted to leave the park, there was one way in, one way out. And you had to go back through all of that chaos. The cops were not doing anything to protect the people leaving. And that's how violence ensued. The fact that the police hadn't shut down the road and you had people driving through protesters, period. I mean, that is piss poor management on the city's part. So this should have been expected. The city, the FBI, many of which were participants and will not be charged. If you talk to the government, this is a good precedent for all of you KKK members or whoever out there. If you work with the government and you talk to them, you will not go to jail. FBI admits federal informants linked to deadly Charlottesville riots unlikely to face charges. That's from the New York Times. Back in a second, we'll wrap it up here with Blacklisted Radio tonight. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Dissenting voices are being not only stabbed, people that are exposing whatever it is that they believe is a very real, tangible threat. People like myself are going to probably ultimately face the exact same wrath when people are selectively enraged about something that we say, something that we do at Blacklisted News or any other website, whether it's your Twitter and they take away your handle. Yeah, so that's kind of what happens there. Daily Stormers, perfect example. They won't let them on Facebook. They can't get on Twitter. They can't find a host. They can't get their stuff on YouTube. So there's no way to really monetize the product, and that's the attack. That's the approach. If you can't monetize the product, then it's almost not worth doing, right? Well, not even monetize. You can't find a place to do it. You can hang out in your backyard and have free speech. You can go choose to be part of one of these rallies, and you can see what apparently a bunch of people that like free speech. That's what they do to each other when they hear each other's free speech. See, so I always stay clear. I'm interested, but only in that what people are upset about. There's a lot of reasons why I think white Europeans could be upset about things that policies that are not working in their favor. You look at the amount of people in this country, period, that are on the government dole in some form or fashion, or that are being subsidized by government. There's plenty of those people that could be empowered and be just not in the situation where they're at today. I mean, there's a lot of people that do a whole lot more for themselves. People don't necessarily do that. People don't necessarily do the things that are in their best interests. That's the big problem. People, things don't always make sense. Why do people eat so much food until they blow up? Why do people drink until they can't see? I don't know. Don't know. Don't know if government can fix it. Don't know if I want to be subject to rules and regulations over the quote unquote dumb people. If you want legislation written for to eradicate people from being able to speak their mind, no matter how much you disagree with it, you're going to be in good company, because there's a lot of people now, including the CEO of which one of these big internet companies, Cloudflare, said that the government, we need some kind of formalized system, because right now it's companies that get to decide whether or not you're able to exist on the internet. It's Namecheap, it's Google, it's Tumblr, whoever you are, wherever you're using their platform, you have to go through somebody, whether it's your name, your domain, your .com. You can get an IP address, but can you get that domain? Well, you have to go to a .lol or a .fm or .ru. I mean, if you can't go to Russia and get you, I mean, Russia didn't even want the heat from the Daily Stormer. Like, oh, no, are you? No, no, thanks, skis. Don't think so. So, you're seeing that now with YouTube. I mean, some of the algorithms find certain things in these shows or some of the bumper music, and if I don't chop enough of it out, they'll tell me I can't monetize it. I mean, literally, you get a few hundred views on the podcast form. So we're not getting rich ski off of the YouTube ski, but some people have, and they've got their cojones. You know, we talk about people that are subservient to government, that are on the government dole. There's so many people that are on the media dole, the YouTube dole. It's hard to navigate. We'll continue this conversation. Please support us. Go to blacklistedradio.com. Thanks to all of you that do, and check it out. We'll be back next week with another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. Until then, take care.